Okay, what if I told you that the one appliance in your kitchen you trust the most, your refrigerator, is actually making some of your food worse? And I'm not just talking about taste or texture. I mean, we're talking about major nutritional loss, even creating harmful chemicals. It's time to uncover what's really going on inside that cold box.
So yeah, this is a question that kind of goes against everything we've been taught, right? We think cold equals fresh, end of story. But for some of the most common foods we eat, the exact opposite is true. The science is clear. For some of our favorites, the cold is a flat-out enemy, triggering processes that sabotage them from the inside out.
All right, let's dive right in, starting with two absolute staples, potatoes and bread. I mean, these are in almost every kitchen. But so often, they end up in the fridge, and that is exactly where the trouble begins.
Now this one might be the most shocking on the entire list. When you put a potato in the fridge, you're not just keeping it cool, you're actually setting the stage for a toxic compound to form later on. No joke. This isn't just about them getting a little mushy. This is a chemical reaction with some pretty serious health implications.
So here's how it works. The process is called cold-induced sweetening. The cold temperature basically freaks the potato out, signaling it to convert its starches into sugars as a survival mechanism. Then, later, when you take that potato and you roast it or fry it or bake it at a high heat, those extra sugars can form something called acrylamide, a substance that the International Agency for Research on Cancer says is a probable carcinogen. Yikes!
And we're not talking about a tiny change here. A study from the University of Idaho found that potatoes stored in the fridge can see their sugar content skyrocket by 300% in just 2 weeks. That's triple the sugar, just happening quietly in your crisper drawer. The best way to store them? A cool, dark, dry place. Think pantry, not produce drawer.
And hey, here's a pro tip that even some of the best cooks miss. Even in the pantry, whatever you do not store your potatoes with your onions. Potatoes release moisture which makes onions go bad, while onions release a gas that makes potatoes sprout. They are total kitchen enemies. They literally cause each other to spoil.
Okay, now for our other starchy friend, bread. You know, putting bread in the fridge to keep it fresh has to be one of the biggest kitchen myths out there. In reality, you're making it go stale way faster. In fact, research shows it goes stale a shocking 6 times faster than bread just left out at room temperature. So, why does this happen? Well, it all comes down to this science-y sounding process called starch retrogradation. But all it really means is that the cold of the fridge makes the starch molecules in the bread crystallize super fast. And as they crystallize, they push all the moisture out. It's like they're squeezing the life out of the bread, leaving you with that hard, crumbly, tasteless loaf. So what are you supposed to do? It's simple. If you're going to eat it in a few days, a bread box or even just a paper bag is perfect. For the long haul, though, the freezer is your best friend, not the fridge. The trick is to slice the loaf first, then freeze it in an airtight bag. When you want a piece, you just pop it straight from the freezer into the toaster. Perfect toast, no staleness. All right, let's switch gears from starches and talk about produce. And here we run into another paradox, where the cold, humid environment we think is so good for preservation is actually creating the perfect conditions for mold, rot, and serious nutrient loss.
For whole onions, the #1 enemy is moisture. A refrigerator is an incredibly humid place. We're talking around 95% humidity. It's practically a rainforest in there. But onions, they need low humidity to stay firm and fresh. The fridge's damp air just seeps right in, turning them soft, mushy, and making them a breeding ground for mold.
The ideal home for an onion is a cool, dry, dark place where air can get to it. So think a mesh bag hanging in a pantry, not a plastic bag sweating in the fridge. Now there is one big exception. Once you cut an onion, the game changes completely. Then it absolutely has to go into an airtight container in the fridge to keep bacteria away.
Next up, let's talk bananas. You gotta remember, bananas are tropical fruits. Their cells are just not built to handle the cold. When you put them in the fridge, it causes what scientists literally call a chilling injury. The cell walls actually rupture, enzymes leak out, the fruit basically just starts to break down from the inside.
And the nutritional damage is just wow. That black peel you see isn't just ugly, it's a huge warning sign. Research has shown that refrigerated bananas can lose up to 80% of their vitamin C in just 5 days. The cold also completely stops the ripening process, which means it stops the creation of all those other good-for-you nutrients too.
Okay, so now we get to the most dramatic and, frankly, the coolest examples. For these next two foods, putting them in the fridge isn't just about a change in texture or losing a few vitamins. We are talking about a fundamental, irreversible shutdown happening at the genetic and molecular level.
This is the one that really blows people's minds. Researchers at the University of Florida found that the cold temperature of a fridge doesn't just make a tomato taste dull, it actually turns off the genes responsible for creating those delicious flavor compounds. And here's the kicker, that damage is permanent. Even if you take the tomato out and let it warm up on the counter for days, those flavor genes never fully turn back on. You can't undo it.
Oh, but it gets worse. Tomatoes are famous for lycopene, right? It's that super powerful antioxidant. Well, the fridge absolutely devastates it, reducing the amount your body can actually use by up to 65%. And on top of that, the cold destroys the very enzymes your body needs to absorb the lycopene in the first place. So the little that's left, pretty much useless to you.
And finally, the avocado. The whole reason we eat avocados is for those incredible healthy fats that are so good for our brains. But refrigeration triggers a nasty process called lipid peroxidation. Basically, the cold causes those amazing beneficial fats to oxidize and turn into harmful free radicals. You are literally destroying the very thing that makes an avocado a superfood.
The scale of the damage here is just hard to believe. Stanford University researchers found that avocados stored in the fridge lose 90% of their antioxidant activity in just 4 days. You're left with a watery, stringy shadow of what was once a nutritional powerhouse.
So after hearing all this, it's pretty clear we need to kind of rethink our relationship with the fridge, you know? It's an amazing tool, for sure, but it is not a one-size-fits-all solution for keeping our food fresh and healthy.
There was a line from one of the sources we looked at that really puts this whole thing into perspective. It said, "These foods represent missed opportunities for better health. Every nutrient counts." And that's so true. This isn't just about food going bad, it's about nutrition that we're losing. Every meal is a chance to fuel our bodies, and when we store food wrong, we're just missing out.
So the big takeaway here is actually pretty simple. Get to know your food. Cold isn't always the answer. By learning how to store these few items correctly, on the counter, in a cool pantry, you can unlock their full flavor, keep all their nutrition, cut down on waste, and at the end of the day, just boost your own health.
And that really just leaves us with one last question to chew on. This whole thing was about questioning a really common assumption. So it makes you wonder, what other kitchen rules do we all follow day in and day out without ever stopping to ask if they actually make any sense?